Hey there, I'm Jessica from Olive Jess, and today I'm going to make a fridge clean out frittata. I don't know about you, but I've been cooking a ton in quarantine, 3 meals a day, and I have a lot of leftovers, so I'm trying to repurpose them as much as I can and turn them into other tasty dishes. So the leftovers I'm using are from fajitas I made a few days ago. These are grilled bell pepper and onion strips with all the seasoning in them already. So all we have to do is chop these since they're already cooked. I also always put cheese in my frittata. This is a mixture of shredded Colby Jack, which is very mild and creamy, and then some Parmesan for flavor. I'm using up like the bits of cheese I have in the fridge, hence the fridge clean out name. I also have a big clamshell container of raw baby spinach. We're going to cook that down first in the skillet, and we'll probably have to chop it a little bit too because these are the biggest baby spinach leaves I think I've ever seen. So I'm going to start, my oven's already preheated to 350. I'm going to turn on my skillet here. Oh, after I cook the spinach, I'm going to arrange all the veggies in the bottom of this baking dish. This is an 8x8 glass baking dish that I've already sprayed with canola oil spray. And then I put the cheese in with the egg mixture and whisk that all together, and I pour that on top and pop it in the oven for like 25 minutes. And frittata is like a crustless quiche. So it's no base, just vegetables or cheese or meat. Some people like to actually put it in their skillet and cook it in their skillet with all the vegetables that have already been cooked in there. I find that it gets too tough, and maybe it's my skillet not being seasoned correctly, or maybe I need to turn my oven down 25 degrees, but I always find that comes out really hard crust. So I like to do it in a glass dish. This is pretty hot. I'm gonna add just a bit of olive oil. That's like a tablespoonish. Want to actually cook any of your raw vegetables before you put them into your frittata, whether they're high water content like spinach, mushrooms, tomatoes, zucchini, because you don't want them to seep water when they're cooking and then make the egg dish look watery, because then it looks like it's undercooked and it's unappealing. And anything hard like potatoes, they won't cook all the way through either in the oven if you don't cook them in advance. They're already starting to wilt and break down on their own. I want to give it a stir. Whoops. Escape artist. You kind of stir them around. It helps the other pieces to wilt more as well. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt. This is kosher salt, like just, I don't know, half a teaspoon. I'm going to add more to the eggs themselves when I am putting this dish together. And there's already salt in the fajita vegetables, and the cheese is salty, so we don't want to overdo it. A little pepper. Turn my flame off. I'm just going to do a very rough chop really quickly because they're long strips and we don't want giant bites of things. We want to make sure that they're evenly dispersed throughout. Prepare a baking dish and my bench scraper. This is an awesome, really cheap little tool. It's a little flexible, and you can use it for scraping things that you just chopped off your cutting board. You can also scrape bowls out with it. You can use it for separating dough if you're baking. Like everyone is in quarantine, but it also saves your knife. Don't ever take your knife and use the blade side to scrape up the things you just chopped, because it will dull your blade. It's not good for your board, and then you'll end up with little knives, which are really dangerous and not as satisfying. I'm gonna take the spinach out of the skillet and turn it out onto the, it's very hot, onto the cutting board really fast, and do the same thing. And I'm actually gonna let it hang out on the cutting board for a couple of minutes while I work on the eggs, because the spinach is so hot and I don't want to risk the hot spinach cooking the eggs either. I'm gonna do a little rough chop here. And I've also done this a million times, this frittata, with a bag of frozen chopped spinach. You don't even have to cook that down. You just have to defrost it. So run it under the faucet, squeeze out the excess water, and arrange it in the dish. Just put your eggs on top and pop it in. So I'm going to add 5 eggs to this. I usually do 5 to 6. And there are actually 2 whites in here as well. I am doing another recipe tomorrow, and I know that my eggs are in limited supply, so I had to kind of count out what I needed. And that recipe requires 2 extra yolks, so I separated the yolks from the whites, decided to throw the whites in this frittata, so we're not wasting anything. And the yolks are in a covered container in the fridge, and you can totally do that. Eggs will keep separated if you're making a pudding and you need the yolks and you need the whites for baking some bread. You could totally keep them separate, use them another day. You can even freeze them out of their shell if you needed to. Oh, and I need the salt and pepper. That's like less than a teaspoon of kosher salt. A few grinds of pepper, and then all of the cheese. There's like less than a quarter cup of Parmesan in here, and maybe about a half a cup, maybe a little less of the Colby Jack. I like a combination of mild and assertive. So if you have feta, if you have mozzarella, if you have goat cheese, anything like that that's creamy and tangy and mild and melty, those are really good combos to add to your frittata. And then we're going to start to whisk it. You don't need to over whisk it. We're not making fluffy scrambled eggs. I know some recipes will add milk or half and half or anything like that to it. I personally don't love that in my eggs. I find that makes them tough. We just want it to combine really well. Spinach, which is cold substantially. It's not cold, obviously it's been like 5 minutes, but it's not piping hot. And I'm gonna scrape that in here, kind of arrange it around. No real rules to that. And then we're going to pour the egg all around. I have a million little spatulas for scraping things out. It helps to get the last bit of peanut butter out of the jar, any of your last batter out of your bowl. Never let this stuff go to waste. Looks pretty. All right, now this guy is gonna go in the oven. Like I said, it's at 350. If you were to do it in a skillet, I would do your oven at 325. Anything that's a darker pan requires a 25-degree lowering because of the way it absorbs the heat, and that thing's already going to be hot from having cooked your vegetables in it, so you don't want to overcook your eggs. And put the timer on for about 25 minutes. I check it around 20 minutes. If it's still jiggly in the middle and it looks like it's still wet, keep an eye on it, maybe let it go the full 25. It's okay if it still looks the tiniest bit jiggly and not liquidy, but jiggly in the center. You can even, with a gloved hand, stick it in there and give it a little shake. And if it slightly jiggles, it's okay because it'll keep cooking as it keeps setting up as it sits out. But you don't want to overdo it because then you'll end up with rubbery, hard eggs and nobody likes that. All right, the timer just went off at 25 minutes. So we're going to pull this thing out and see if it's ready. Give it a little jiggle. It's not moving. Look at that. The cheese kind of rose to the top and it's going to be all melty and gooey and delicious. Let's cut a piece and try it. Take it right in here. This could serve 4 to 6 people with that many eggs. Also, I forgot to mention, because there's no crust in here and it's just vegetables and egg and cheese, it's naturally gluten-free. Let's try it. Ooh, nice and hot. The egg is nice and custardy and soft, and then the cheese is tangy, and the veggies have that like garlicky, zippy flavor from the fajita seasoning. Nicely balanced out, so you get little pockets of all of it. I'd probably put like a little green salad on the side of this, and maybe some fruit, and then you've got like a nice brunch. Just to recap, this is a fridge cleanout frittata, which uses the leftover vegetables I have from dinner the other night, the last bits of cheese I have in the fridge, different kinds, some fresh veggies before they go to waste. It's a crustless quiche, so it's gluten-free by nature. It can be vegetarian, you can add meat if you want. In about half an hour, you've got a lovely brunch, lunch, dinner, whatever you want. Yeah, I hope you try it and enjoy it. Thanks for watching.